guys, welcome back. Grab your candle or your drink if you've got one. We're gonna get this lit. I really need one of those candle extender or lighter extenders. Anyways, I got my candle. I've got a hot cup of tea today, which seemed like just the ticket. So make sure you get something to make yourself comfy. We are on day 15 of 30 watercolor tips and tricks. And today is called Flat Wash. I'll go ahead and show you what we're painting. And it looks like this cutie little buddy. The colors are slightly different. You can always do whatever you want for colors. This one's got ink over the top and this one doesn't, and that's personal preference. So that will be up to you at the end. If you are marking off your calendars, we are this far, which is feeling like we're getting somewhere. So it's pretty awesome. We are, let's talk about supplies, and then I'm going to start talking about flat wash. So we need our watercolor paints and a towel or a paper towel. Make sure you have some water, round watercolor brush, pencil, and a kneaded eraser. And then I'm going to use a little felt tip pen today, just like kind of a thinner line. If I decide to do that outline on the end, I think I will. I think it's cute on this one. So that is our supplies. Make sure you have some sort of like a craft heat gun if you can. Otherwise, an old hair dryer does great. And yeah, we're going to talk about flat wash. So if you've got your little bundle of cards, we are on day 15, flat wash. A flat wash involves applying a single uniform layer of color to a large area of paper. Think of it as moving a puddle around the paper. Remove excess water quickly when finished. Okay, and so I'm going to show us how to do that today. But this is for when you've got an area you just want to be one color, okay? You don't want to see a bunch of variations in it or markings or anything like that. It's maybe not the focus, it's maybe the background most commonly. And you want it to be one plain color. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of something. I'll turn the camera around and show it again, but I painted this the month I started painting probably. And I wanted that background, and look at that's huge, right? I wanted that background to be one color. And when I saw this, I was very frustrated. I want it to look more like this. And so we're going to learn how to get it to look this way today. And I'm going to turn the camera around and show you that this way as well. But yeah, we're talking about a flat wash, and we're going to sketch and then paint a cute little bird. Okay, so this is up close, the one that I did. I went and dug this out to find it for today because I remember hating it so much and just being so confused. Like, why doesn't this look the way I wanted it to look? And you can see where I went around the body, vertical lines. You can see where I went horizontal, and I tried to sort of clean it up like that, thinking it's more like acrylic paint or like a marker where you're going to see those lines. But with watercolor, you don't need to see those lines, and it's a really cool thing. So this was because I didn't have enough water. And I'm going to guess I also worked a little bit slower maybe, but definitely not enough water, where this does kind of look like acrylic paint or marker. And I was so proud of her though. Now I can see how I've changed as an artist over time, but that's one. And I just want to plop these right on here so you can see the difference. Do you see how nice and clean of a wash these backgrounds are? So first of all, these are smaller and they will be a little easier to do for that reason. But when I talk about keep moving a puddle around, I don't know if a bunch of other artists say it that way or not. Sometimes I forget what I've learned through reading or through just experience. But when I say think of it as moving a puddle around the paper, I want you to really keep that one in mind. And then at the end, because it's a puddle, you have more water. You're going to want to do that lifting where you clean and dry your brush and just touch it wherever it's puddling or pooling real quickly at the end, barely disturbing it, and then let it dry. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you that example. I was like, this will be a helpful one. I forgot how big it was. That was probably part of my problem as well. It was like a big amount of space to sort of not be adding anything else to. At this point, I'd probably maybe add some flowers or something over there. But all right, what do we need? We are going to use the one on the right as our example today. But we'll pull the other one out if we need to. But just notice you can always do any colors you want. If you want to quick take a screenshot, let me get the shadow off of here, of either one of these, this is the moment to do so. And it's just a sweet little bird, with a hat and a scarf. You could do yours with a party hat or with a beach ball. I mean, you can, like, the sky's the limit on that one. We're going to need our pencil and our eraser. And I am filming kind of differently to try to avoid all of that camera shaking. So as I figure it out today, if I'm adjusting a little extra, I am really sorry. I'm going to try not to do that. Okay, so quick observation. We're going to put in our border first, and that's an easy start. And then we will look for what large shapes make up the shape of this animal. And you can always find shapes within, honestly, I think it's probably everything, but definitely in animals. And usually you can find circles or ovals to make them up. So when we start, if you think about this one, almost like a pill. You know how a pill would be like straight, and just like curved. So like an oval this way. And here you can kind of do almost like an egg, because it's going to get a little smaller on this side, and then we'll add on to that tail. Remember, when we're doing things like this, just to get sort of a basic understanding, and let's begin so I don't just talk for too long, to press lightly with your pencil. So we're going to take our pencil and put dots in our four corners about the same distance from the side and the bottom, and then kind of in the same spot all the way around. So 4 dots. All right. And then we're going to connect them. Remember, like, if you try to be really perfect about it, you'll kind of notice when it's not. So that's why I love this little imperfect line. It's great because it was never meant to be perfect. So I know I got a lot of perfectionists out there trying to let go of that as they learn watercolor. You get it as you layer up, though. I'll always say, like, the perfectionist part of you will get control when you get to that final layer. So sometimes you guys are the ones who like the ink on the ends. All right, enough about that. Okay, so we are going to start with those main shapes. I say start, but I actually want you to do 2 things first to make sure you keep those shapes where we want them. One is, if you can, don't even worry where this is yet, but just put this sort of little circle that's something like a palm with a little space above it. That's going to help us kind of make sure we don't get these large shapes too far up. And then let's put just like maybe like this, like enough space that we know we'll be able to place feet later, right? So that this oval doesn't get too far down. From here, we will do really light, sort of I think I'm going over too far, some sort of like a oval this way. Don't worry about this, that's movable. And then another one overlapping. See how it's a wider one. So it's gonna come maybe all the way up to here and over to the right. And look at what a good start we've gotten now. Something like this maybe looks like a hot disaster still, but it's not. What I'll start to do is now find that palm and think, okay, what's actually the top center of that? And still press lightly because we don't know, we're not moving this. I hope you guys are sticking with me. I think I'm weird about this sometimes, but I just like to understand where things go and why. So I'm widening this out a little, and then realize his hat is a little further out than the scarf, than the body. So everything's kind of coming in one little step. Okay, and I'm going to start to curve these together. I'm going to curve that one for sure and see what's happening. Let's give it this little tail. So think about the tail as just like a triangle kind of directed this way. And in a minute, we're going to just change it all. Pretty good start though. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at it with you. Let's do feet somewhere underneath the body. Just do those 2 lines even for a minute. I think this helps me just go, okay, now let's assess. And I want to get these overlapping lines out of the center first because I think they're distracting. Yep. And from here, I think, what if you put this scarf on first? So this is like somewhere near the bottom of the head part. You're going to do a, what would this be? Like a slight smile. I think I'm too high. So I'm changing it before I erase it. Okay. A slight smile with another one on top. I did this yesterday and I think I did it slightly different, but I think having that on there is going to help because it's going to divide up the body for us. So got that. Now from here we can look and see that head is small. It's kind of like a little wide rainbow. And the hat, the yellow portion, right, is taking up more vertical space than the actual face. So we don't need to go too high. You could split it in half though if you want. And from here, that wide rainbow. Okay. And now we'll come down and we're going to curve the sides of the hat, the little flaps. You'll start to see if this is working or not. And some of us will need more erasing and back and forth than others. And like, of course we will, right? That makes sense. I want this one to end up coming down kind of on the outside of the scarf. So if you needed to move the hat a little wider for that, you could, just so that's going to work out. And we're getting there. Let's see. Okay, the scarf, I'm going to kind of tip down a little bit now. So just these little slight changes. Yeah, it's coming together. Even if it doesn't feel like it yet, it is, because all of these lines sort of build on top of each other, and each one of them makes the next thing easier. Okay, so now I want us to look at this body a little bit. And remember, we talk about finding those straight lines. I see one here. I see one here. I see one here. So we actually can break that into 3. So 1, this one's more vertical, and then we're going to tip down. So if you can somehow find 1, 2, 3, and there is no perfect because this is just a little doodle of a bird, right? This one's kind of curved in like that. And I see this as a nice little subtle smile coming across and over. So if you can get that curve a little more, I think that'll feel good. Basically, that's the shape of the bird. I think that my head seems tipped a little bit, and now I have to decide, do I want that or do I want to kind of tip it straighter? So right now I want us all just to make these little adjustments, whatever they might be. Just stop and look at yours. Whenever we've got a sketch like this, take a minute on your sketch because it'll pay off. If you go quick on that sketch and then just fill it in, sometimes it's like, oh man, and now you can't change it because you painted. So love it. I'm going to make this puff ball just a little bit bigger because that seems cute. And I think we can start to add a couple details here. So if you want to add a little jagged line on the bottom of the tail, go for it. It's kind of like lightning back and forth like that. If you want your bird a little bigger, you can make it bigger now. I'm going to add these little feet, and it's like they all start. So notice mine overlaps the border, and I like that. I'm going to come up just a hair, but 1, 2, 3. It's sort of like a triangle without that bottom line, and it's divided in half. 1, 2, 3, something like that. And let's do the face last, okay? So I'm gonna take this line down, do this palm. I would make it, that's funny, smaller than the top, so I'm making the top bigger because I like that, okay? So just a little bit smaller than the top I think would make sense, and we want 2 of them. So straight line down right from the center of the curve. Find the center of that curve, straight line down, basically the center of this one. And I'm making mine jagged a little bit like puffy, but you can make them perfect circles too, it doesn't matter. Cute. And now we're going to get some polka dots in that hat. If you don't want polka dots, like don't do polka dots, you know. It would be cute with a simple solid color too. And I am just sketching some circles, and I want some of them to go off of the hat as if it's round, right? So some you'll see the full circle, and some you'll see cut off either towards the back or towards the front. Yeah, and I just look for like sort of equal distance between them. Like maybe I'd have one right here, but I think I'm gonna skip it. Okay, and then all we need left is the face. So you're assessing still. If anything got like a little bit just not the way you wanted, or your lines got really dark, you just keep adjusting. And then the face is sort of simple. Let's get those 2, okay, a quick observation. We'll put the 2 eyeballs in, but notice that below them we need space for the cheek circles. Okay, and the eyeballs are wide. Look how wide they are. that little beak can be in the center. Look at that. I can basically fit my pencil between the eyes. They're pretty wide, and wide on little cartoony things is adorable. 1, 2, and they're kind of up high. From here, I will do the beak, and it's going to be this little curve across, and then kind of like a triangle underneath. And then let's do these little circles for the cheeks, just to remind us to fill them in later. Cutie, right? So the sketches are all slightly different, and that's going to be great. I love it. That's it. That's it for the sketch. I hope that felt okay. If not, pause it for a minute, come back to it, and make sure you like it. And then we're going to go ahead and start getting our colors mixed. All right, I can't see quite as well, so I'm going to bring you in. Perfect. And I'll just point out the differences. The one on the left has a little bit of purple added to the pink for the background, and it has more of a green than a blue on the hat and scarf, and most of the rest is the same, okay? But we're gonna do it with this one today. So I'm taking my brush. Oops, let's get our spray bottle out. Okay, I'm spraying this side 6 or 8 times maybe, just to get these nice and wet. You don't need it, so if you don't have it, don't worry. And I will take my brush, dip it into my water, and I think the first color I want to come up with is whatever I'm going to do for the background. So if you're using this paint set, you can use the one on the top left as a nice pink, but if you don't have this paint set, in watercolor, the way you get your colors lighter is by adding water. And so you can take any kind of a red and add water to that, and then that's your pink. So you can play with the different ones and see what you think. Get different colors and try them out. This one's going to have more orange in it, and that's really lovely too. So you got options, okay? I'm just doing a couple just to show you the differences. In any of these colors you pull out, you just don't get too heavy with paint, because you want a bunch of water in there to make your color lighter. And you notice how, look at how that's so separated. That looks like cheetah print, kind of. Here, I'll make it look like cheetah print. Why? Okay, focus. But notice how they have enough water that they are a puddle. Remember, for a flat wash, we want to be moving the puddle around, so it needs to be a puddle. So those are great, and I'll just choose one of those when the time comes. We need some yellow. We don't need a lot for this one. I think it's actually going to be kind of a simple, easy one, and I hope that's the case. I'm sure you'll need a break once in a while. I'm going to dip my brush into my water now, but more like half of my brush, and I'm going to grab some yellow. And I want this puddle to be a little bit smaller. I don't need so much water. I will need more control because it's a tight space. So, and if I decide that that is too dark, I can clean the pigment out of my brush and just add a little bit of water back into it without like flooding it with water. Okay, so we're always thinking how much water, how much paint, and why am I creating this? What's it for over here? I also am going to need some orange. So now I'm taking the tip of my brush into my water jar. And when I say tip, I mean I don't know if you can see it from here. Tip of my brush is just sort of touching it and coming out. Most of the trouble that I see is when we get a full brush of water and come at stuff. Okay, so, okay, getting some orange. You pick the one that you like. I'm mixing a dark and a light because that's what I just did a light one on this, but I guess I'm changing it up today. So I've got a little bit of a darker orange here, still adorable. And then I want you to decide what color will your pom and your scarf and your polka dots be, unless you're doing something completely different. So just play with your colors for a minute and see what you're gonna do. So I like probably this fifth one up from the bottom center is probably what I used initially for this one. So I'll try to kind of match that one again. And I have a bigger puddle here, so I'll have to be sure to control my water on my brush, right? Let's see what else. I'm just looking at the whole thing. And yeah, I think this is ready to go. All right. Oh, that was me bumping my tea against my water jar. Okay, we are going to begin. So remember, we can't work next to something that's wet without our colors bleeding. So we will be using our dryer a little bit today. And the first things that I want to do actually are the background of the hat. And then we need one more color, the shadow of the body. So for that color, I'm going to show it to you real quick. I'm dipping the tip of my brush into my water. And for me, since I do black over here, I always have just a tiny bit somewhere to grab from. And it works really well for when I want a really light gray. But otherwise, just the teeniest little bit of your brush into that paint plus water. And you don't need a lot. So see this? The darker, like the more black you get into this, it's going to look dirty versus a shadow, because really it's a white bird, okay? So we don't need a big color change. Okay, so make sure you have that one ready. And actually, if your brush is still in that one, we can just start with that one. I'm gonna move the paints though so I can get closer on here. I'm doing it with you. All right. So for that one, you've got that really light gray. And we're just going to look at the bottom of this body and just add a little bit. Notice the color is not too different than the body. I want it to go along the underbelly and under the tail. If you wanted to try this, you could then take your brush, clean it out in your jar, dry it on your towel, and then take that brush and sort of just run it along the edge of that gray. And that's just going to give you a little fade, not on top of the gray. You would take your damp brush and run it, you just touching it a little bit and pressing into your brush so that it creates like sort of water to run into. Okay, so that's just a little tiny tidbit for you. And now I'm going to get into my yellow paint. So make sure you've got your yellow. You're using still the tip of your brush because this is such a small space. And we are going to start. So don't accidentally bump that. Maybe put your finger down somewhere dry. And now I'm just going to take my brush. So light on the tip of your brush in these tiny spaces. And if you've got a really tiny space, tip your brush all the way vertical, and that's going to help as well. Remember that using a watercolor, like using a brush, is about pressure, especially a round brush, but any brush. And so the lighter you are on the tip of your brush, the smaller the tip of your brush will be. I didn't erase my pencil out of there, but it's okay. If this was touching this, you shouldn't paint that yet, and I hope yours isn't, because otherwise your colors are going to bleed. If you ever need to, you can try to lift that back up. I'll show you what to do if that happened. I'll clean my brush and dry it, and I'll lift that yellow right back out, and then I would try to dry it, but hopefully none of you are having that happen. I just added some yellow back in. It's a little too dark, so I'm taking some out. Now I'm making a mess. Oh my goodness. But I'm going to roll with it. Okay, so we've got our yellow in there. And I'm looking for, is there anything else that we can paint that's not touching something wet? Do you know what's funny is by doing that example, I made my yellow bleed. See it? I'm going to leave it. We're not going to be mad about it later. Okay, so what I do see is that we could do those little pink cheeks because they're not touching anything. So let's get in there with our pink. So clean out your brush. Maybe dry it on your towel and just pick a pink. It could be the same as your background or not. You just need the teeniest amount. So small you honestly would be surprised, okay? And we've got those little cutie cheeks in there. You know what else we could do? We could do the beak, but I'm gonna wait in case you've got a wet belly still. So let's all go to our dryers for a minute. We'll give it a quick dry and then we'll move on. A reminder that if your paint starts to sort of bow, or your paper, when you dry it, it's just because it's absorbing water. And so you can take it and gently roll it backwards, and that will help a little bit. So now we have got the blue and the orange, basically, and we'll dry it again and we'll do the background. So this one's kind of popping along quickly, and part of that is because the bird itself is white. And if you can ever do that and incorporate the color white, a reminder that that's just leaving your paper white. And it works out great and looks good. So absolutely use white. Okay, so I'm going to get my blue on my brush. And I'm going to start by doing this palm. For anybody who's feeling like it, I'll remind you that you could do wet on wet in a space like this. Anytime you have wet paint, feel free to play in that paint by loading in another color, a darker color. And when you do that, you add less water. So we're not doing it today, but I just like to remind you sometimes that those are always opportunities. And if you do it, great. And I am going to do that little scarf the same color, because why not? And I'm going to make the string darker. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill right over those strings and not worry about them. If I wanted those strings to be a lighter color, I could have used masking fluid. I maybe could have drawn them with crayon instead, so it kept them white. But I chose just do this light blue, let it dry fully, and we'll go back in later with dark blue. So I'm hoping I don't forget. That's the kind of thing I tend to forget. Okay, I'm cleaning out my brush and drying it on my towel. And now we just have the orange. So realize the orange is teeny tiny today. And so we need just the littlest bit of water, barely any. Everything is like minute right now. That's how we use this one brush efficiently, is really controlling that water. So I made sure I had some on my brush, and I've got this little teeny tiny beak, sorry. And now I'm going to go in and do these, okay, feet. Yeah, they're still called feet. Okay. And I'm running the tip of my brush along this, so light on the tip of my brush, because if you were to apply just a little bit more pressure, your lines will be thicker. And for things like this, we just want skinny. So I have filled in, I think, everything that I can except for the eyes. And since the eyes are dark anyways, I'm going to have us dry the whole thing. We will paint the background, then we'll do eyes and string. Okay. So a quick little dry. Yeah. The reason that a flat wash can dry poorly is either that if we went and did this and it was like puddling and pooling over here, and we went back and grabbed it and we kept painting, went back again, and this starts to dry and we're still messing with it while we're painting over here and we're going back one more time. This is drying, and if it's drying and you keep doing this, it's going to show how it dried differently, if that makes sense. And then also if it's puddles or pools, let's say right here, you've got more water than the rest, and you're like, that's fine, I'm gonna leave it. That water will dry after the rest of the water. So really this is it's a study in water and water drying. I always think that's just kind of funny to think of it that way. But really we want to start over here. We're going to have a medium amount of paint. We're going to keep refreshing our brush as we move this way. We're going to come around and come back here, fill this in, maybe grab that little gap. And we're going to do it without trying to go backwards, except if we needed to grab excess water. So I'm going to grab this different color today just for fun. I'm turning my paper like this, and I'm going to get into this spot. I think that we've done a flat wash on another one. Yeah, day 6, but this is flat wash. So I'm taking, I probably already have a little bit more than I want to have. I can either keep moving it and then just grab a little bit, or I can just touch my brush to my towel, which I just did. And now I've limited it even more, and I'm going to keep moving. I want to sort of pull this puddle around and keep it from pooling anywhere. So I'm taking it and moving. I will not start painting here and go back and paint this. I might lift from it though. And anything we do to touch it after this, we're just going to be really efficient about it. You're just going to touch it and move on, because we don't want to see markings. This is something that I do think it takes a while to, I don't want to say master. Look at, I used gravity for a second. But the more you do it, the more you study what you're doing and what's happening when you are doing it, because we all paint a little differently, the better it's going to feel. But yeah, it needs to be wet and sort of dry together, which is why that giant one that I did was harder. I'm done with it, but it's darker here and here. I wiped my brush on my towel. I come back, and this is the lifting. Touch it. This is it over here. A little touch, maybe one more here. And I don't think I'm going to do anything else. Maybe here, only where it's darker, but see, now you can see where I touched it. So I'm leaving it. And I feel like this part stresses people out. They're like, oh my gosh, and I'm always like, if you don't want to see hard lines, that's usually when we're using more than one color, but you know, you have to keep it moving. And that's why I say watercolor is bossy, and part of it is just this, because the drying time. So when you get it like this and you've checked, see how it's puddling over here? I'm going to touch it one more time, barely. And then I'm just going to go ahead and dry it. But yeah, make sure if there's any puddles or pools, you just quick grab those. That's going to really help you as well. And honestly, if you have markings on the background, embrace them. It's kind of a cool part of watercolor, but we're just sort of studying this one today. So, okay, a quick dry. And you see it's this nice one color. I don't see any markings in it. If I did see some cauliflowering or blooming in there, some lines that are kind of funky, honestly, just roll with it. If you were to try to then get that up later and you touch your brush to it, you're likely introducing a little bit more water and it's just going to look messy. So a lot of times it's just like, let it be. Okay, we've got two things left. We have got the eyes and the string, and we are almost done. I hope you liked this one. I think it's such a little cutie. So the eyes I'm going to do with the felt tip pen, because why wouldn't I? But the string I'm going to do by dipping the tip of my brush only into my water and then getting right into my paint this time. I want to get it a darker version of the blue I already used. And test it out on your palette first, and then you just this little simple line, and I think that that looks like kind of just cute and realistic, and it still coordinates with your other colors. And once you get the eyes in there, it'll balance out how that's a little darker, right? But this is going to sort of pull it together. It's just this little simple circle. Oh, I forgot, we're not going to be done because we're going to outline them just for fun. So this is adorable, isn't it? How can you not be happy when you're painting and then you're doing cutie stuff like this? All right, so the only thing that might be wet for me is these little strings. And since I used very little water, I know they won't stay wet for long. This is how I did the ink on this one. Is basically for the palms. You have to decide, are they like perfectly round, or are they, they could be like fluffy like clouds, you know, or they could be sort of sketchy, you know, move your hand and twist it around like this, or just sort of a loose, barely anything, perfect circle. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. And then for the body, I'm just doing this sort of little jagged thing. Think about how, though, it would all kind of be going downward when you're doing an animal. The fur goes, you know, head downward. Think about if you were to pet an animal, you wouldn't pet it tail to head because it would mess up its fur or its feathers. So little tidbit there. And then I'm just going to do this sort of happy something on here, and we're going to start our sketching, or our is it called sketching? Outlining, I guess. And you can always either clean up your shape or just focus on covering your pencil marks. It doesn't matter. Oh, remember how I had that yellow bleed? Do you notice how, like, it's cute? So sometimes just let it be. In classes a lot, I'm like, just leave it. It might be your favorite part later. And a lot of times it is. And that's just a funny thing. But it helps you to not worry so much too. Oh man, what a cutie. Okay, so I did the palm first, which overlaps the body. And yes, I wish I would have erased that pencil, and I didn't, and that's fine. And so for this, I am going to do just a little jagged line, sort of focusing it downward. Bigger right here. What a little buddy. I'm going to do the beak too. And the circles. I hope you guys have a good day today. I don't know if you're starting your day with this or ending it, or if you're using it as an escape to get away from your kids for a minute. I don't know what you're doing. Do you guys remember line weight? We could do a darker line right here, like a shadow. We could do a darker line right here. Do you remember that? Right under things. Just give a little bit more sort of depth. I'm going to do it less on the bottom of the body since it's white. And I'm going to just do this little quick outline. Oh, I'm obsessed with this little guy. I feel like he needs a name. if my kids were here, they would name it immediately before I was able to. We're big namers around here. Okay, and then I'm going to do this outline as well, just for fun. And notice I'm turning my paper. It's so much easier to do it that way. So make sure you're turning that paper whenever you can. And if you're taping your edges, you can put it on a board like this. This is a, you know, that kind of a board. And then you can still turn it, which is nice because you still don't lose that ability to turn. Make sure you sign your work, and then we'll get out our little calendar for the day. We have now completed day 15. Oh my goodness, that means we're halfway through. And if you're like me, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so many days. I'm feeling like it is so many, but I'm having the best time. So wherever your calendar is, if you want to grab either a pencil or whatever, or your paint and fill in that day. I would love to see your artwork. It's so much fun. Also, keep commenting on the YouTube videos. I choose winners to send free artwork just randomly on the comments. So keep it coming. I'll see you tomorrow.